Well, welcome everyone. How you doing? How you been? I hope you're doing well. And thanks for watching the weekly download. Today, we're going to talk about my videography price sheet and how I price my videography projects. And this is for all the videographers and video business owners out there who want to know the best way and practices to come up with a price sheet for a client. Now, this is something that I do when I have already either close the deal and they want to see the actual breakdown of the cost or actually part of a proposal. Sometimes somebody is going to ask you what is the pricing of your services, and sometimes you would want to go back to them and say this is my flat rate. Although, depending on the scope of work, you may need to break it down for yourself and also for the client in order for you to make sure you get a margin and make sure that the client feels that they're not getting taken advantage of. Okay, this is something that I've learned in the past couple of years, as it's an art, but at the same time, it's a really great way for you to look at yourself as a videographer and value yourself and also the roles that you take on. Because when you start creating a price sheet, you start breaking down the different roles of the actual video production. So the first thing that I need to do, and what I do before I get into my pricing sheet method and methodology, is that I have to figure out the scope of work. So what's the scope of work? So it's basically, what does the whole project require me to do? Okay, so is it a commercial, a TV commercial? That means I have to have, permits and insurance, and I have to work with SAG, I have to work with unions, I have to, rent really big studios and sets. Or is it a digital ad? Is it just more for a social media, piece of content that only requires, a phone and also a clean kitchen for a recipe video? Whatever it is, you got to know the scope of work. I know it's easier said than done, but sometimes people just pitch video services to a client. They ask for a budget or a proposal, but never ask the client, what's the scope of work. You can price them saying, yeah, I charge $5,000 a video, and they can come back to you with a broadcast commercial that ends up being $100,000 in a 4-day shoot, right? So you really need to ask what the project is all about in the scope of work. The second thing you have to ask is also your deliverables, okay? Nowadays, it's usually not just one video that you're delivering. You're probably delivering a video, the full length, either a 30-second spot, a 1-minute piece, or a 15-second, clip, and then maybe there's going to be cut downs, right? So if it's a 1-minute, 30-second spot, you have 15-second, 6-second cut downs, and then you have to also crop for vertical, square, and portrait. Okay, and all of these deliverables are actually part of the editing cost. So you have to really take that in mind. At the same time, you have to know what the other deliverables are, because you have to know what you have to shoot. If you have to crop from a horizontal or in the landscape 16:9 footage to a vertical so they can post it on TikTok and YouTube, you have to know whether or not you have to shoot all super wide, or you're going to have a second camera in place that's going to be vertical, or you're going to find some sort of workaround in order for you to capture the vertical and the horizontal. And also, there may be other versions that they want you to capture. And at the same time, there may be other deliverables. Maybe there's photos that they want you to capture. Maybe there's audio, or there's going to be clips from behind the scenes clips. They probably want someone on set to film the crew and the client on set working on the video production. So you really need to know the deliverables, so you know what needs to be done to perform and execute on those deliverables, and also the amount of work that goes into post and when you shoot. All right. The third thing that I like to figure out as well, of course, is that once you got the scope of work and you have the deliverables, now you got to figure out what type of crew you need to execute the vision. Now, for your videographers out there, you're probably used to being the one-man band, all right? The one person that handles the writing, the producing, the directing, the camera operation, the director of photography. You're your own camera department, so you handle the grip and the lighting. You also provide sound, you record the sound, and you also end up being the PA because you get the lunch and whatnot, and you set up the craft services. It's a lot of work, all right? So when you do have to do a bigger project, think about the different departments that you can hire for that project. And I want to speak this to a lot of you, to a lot of videographers out there who keep thinking that you can do everything by yourself. Eventually, you want to be that one role that you grew up you wanted to be. You might want to be a director, a producer, a writer. Maybe you wanted to just be a camera op and a director of photography, or maybe you just wanted to be, a writer. Whatever it is, you really need to work towards that goal. And you can't keep doing everything all by yourself. And it's best to have a crew, because honestly, you're just going to have a better product when you have people specializing in different departments. So as you're coming out with this price sheet, just think on your mind, okay, what are the things that need to be captured? Of course, the footage. So what kind of camera? What are the specs, right? So the deliverables. Again, what are the deliverables? Do they need it in 4K, 1080? Honestly, nowadays, you have to shoot in 4K, all right? Shooting 4K. For you, this can be all up to how you like to shoot and edit. 10-bit RAW. Is it going to be in red code? Is it RA code? Is it Blackmagic? Is it going to be, Sony Venice RAW images? Whatever it is, figure out what your workflow is going to be. And the equipment-wise, when it comes to camera, honestly, try not to go too crazy. Of course, if you have a big budget and you want to rent something, if you want to be the camera operator, you can just rent, the best camera in the whole world, and then have someone else be the director or the DP or whatnot. But really, at this point, when you start thinking about the crew, just know that you have the potential of hiring your dream crew. All right. So think about your camera department. Think about your sound recordist. All right. Think about the PAs on set, the people that need to run errands, pick up, trash on the floor, sign waivers, get people to sign waivers, all of that. Right. Also, makeup and hair. There's also the wardrobe, props. Right. You need someone, either you're going to do an art director or a production designer. And then you have to also think about the producer and executive producer and the line producer, and then maybe a post producer. And this is just for production. Remember, pre-production, writer, who's going to be doing the writing, who's also going to come up with the storyboards, as well as the location scout. There's so much involved. And of course, there's post-production. There's your editor, but you have your offline and your online editor. Okay, so your offline editor, just the initial edit. Online takes that edit and then starts applying the color grade, or starts sending it to color, prepping this timeline to send to color for color correction, color grading, sends it back. Now you can send it out to VFX, right? And then you got to figure out who you have in VFX. You have your digital matte painters. You have your compositors. You have your rotoscope department. You have your animators. You also have your 3D animators. All of this, you got to consider this. And then of course you have sound mixing and sound design. And then if you want to get fancy with it, there's motion graphics, and then beauty work, and a lot more in post. So the crew can be massive or it can be small, but what's good about having that idea in mind is that, let's say this is for a proposal, you can propose like a really, a great crew, and then if they come back to you and say that it's too expensive, then you can at least come back to them with you by yourself doing everything. But I honestly do feel that if you are a videographer and you're recording the sound and setting up the lights and operating the camera and directing and producing, consider those as separate roles, please, and then use that as your template moving forward to put on your price sheet. And even though you might be doing everything all at once, at least you're getting paid for your time and your role, okay? This is just for all your videographers out there. You need to value your work. Okay, after that, once you have the crew, you have the equipment. Now, when it comes to the equipment, you do have the opportunity to hire people that can bring the equipment. So that's when you can ask the DP if they have a camera and lens package. You can also ask them if they have a gaffer they work with that has a grip and electric, 1-ton truck, half-ton truck. And this is a great way for you to actually work with a camera department that is consistent with your production. So a DP with a gaff, grip, best boy, and also just a camera, assistant camera, and then camera assistant, everything. So this is really good for you when down the line where you can have the money to pay for camera departments. And then when it comes to the equipment, think about sound recording as well, right? Do you need to hire a sound recordist, or do you need to rent sound, or do you have your own sound? And then, of course, that goes into the production design for props, and then wardrobe and all of that. So when you think about the equipment, we also have to think about is what you're bringing, okay? So nowadays, when people hire videographers, they think everything is part of the package. And for me, as I hire DPs, camera operators, G&E, gaffers, I respect that they have a wealth of knowledge and a lot of equipment they bring to the table. So I also throw in some sort of rental fee on top so that they could feel like they are actually getting compensated for their time and for their equipment. All right. And if it's too expensive, then you can go rent your own G&E and your equipment as well. Right. So there are two ways to go about this: hire people who have the equipment, or hire people separately and rent the equipment separately. All right. And that goes all into the price sheet. Again, so the beginning, you don't know what the scope of work is. What's the footage you're going to capture? How many days is it going to take? What kind of, scenes you need to capture? As you figure out the scenes, figure out what you need to capture, then you need to know, what is the crew that you need to hire. And so who needs to be hired to capture all these shots? You need a director of photography, a crew, camera department, art director, production design, sound recordist, a producer, PAs, and then yourself as a director if you're the director. And then from there, when you have the crew, you can ask them if they have the equipment to bring, or you can start looking into rental houses to see how much it will cost for that type of equipment. And then it's all about the shoot days, all right? This goes back to scope of work, but then now that you know your crew, now that you know your equipment, now you got to know how many days you're going to need to hire those people. Okay, so is it a weekend shoot? Is it a 3-day shoot, 1-day shoot? And this is going to really, determine your budget, right? Because if you have equipment rentals or crew hires, it's usually day rates. And so you can say that, you could all do it in 1 day, but be real to yourself, okay? And look at the script, look at the scope of work, make sure you don't overwork your crew, okay, and overwork yourself. If you need to split it into 2 days, split it in 2 days and explain it to the client. And then, of course, my last thing that I like to know to determine the price is the amount of deliverables. Like, how many things are we delivering? We talked about this before. Are we delivering the just a 16:9 30-second spot that's in broadcast specs, or also going to be providing, cut downs, different versions for social media, behind the scenes photos, behind the scenes footage, whatever it is. It's good to know the deliverables, because that's also going to determine the pricing of the editing as well as the shooting. And there's a whole bunch of other things that goes into it as well, which is the production costs, like insurance, location rental, and a whole bunch of other things as well. But that goes into, of course, the scope of work. Okay, so knowing the scope of work, you're going to know what's really going to be needed in order for you to execute the shoot, right? You can have a huge production that can cost $500,000, or you can have a small production that costs $10,000. But it really all boils down to the scope of work. Okay. And of course, there's going to be other things you can throw into the price sheet. There's the agency fee. All right. So the agency fee is your fee as an agency or as a production company fee that you put on top that actually compensates you as a production company to find all these people, to get all this equipment, to put this all together. And this is outside of the producing fee, the executive producing fee, or the directing fee that you would take if you wanted to be those roles. And it's really important that you have some sort of agency fee, because you don't want to be caught in the red, right? Sorry, in the black. In the red. You don't want to be caught, basically over budget. And if you have some sort of agency fee, at least, takes care of the extra work that you put on top. And then if you do go over budget, it helps you out a little bit. And that's another thing you can add on top is a contingency fee, 10%. So you can do a 10% contingency fee on top. So the 10% contingency fee, that can go on top of the production. And then after that, you can put your 20 to 25 or 30% production company or agency fee. All right. And that's really good to have, just because you want to get compensated as a production. At the same time, you might have some buffer so that if you do go over budget, you can at least use some of your contingency, or God forbid, your agency fee to actually make up for those costs. So those are the different ways that I determine my price sheet for videography and for my video productions. Again, it's a scope of work, what footage needs to be captured, the equipment that needs to be rented, the crew that needs to be hired, the number of shoot days, and the amount of deliverables. So hopefully this was helpful to a lot of you out there. And again, this is the weekly download. My name is Mitchel Dumlao, and I post every single week here on the YouTube channel and also Facebook, Video Content School. And if you have any questions, please email me at mitchell@videcontentschool.com, or leave a comment below and let me know what you want to hear next on one of my next live streams. If you like this video, please like, comment, and share this with anyone you think would find this helpful. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button below to get notifications. I really do appreciate you watching this video, and I will see you next.